Okay, so we're going to have a nice intimate talk today about the power of music. My name is Anja Fahlenkamp. I organized this festival. I am a politics student at SOAS myself. I am from a Jewish background, and I'm organizing this, as I said earlier today in my opening speech, because I want to encourage people to engage in interfaith dialogue and counter the trend that we see in this world today that religion is being advocated as something that divides people rather than brings them together. Today we're going to talk about the power of music, music's power to not only to create peace, to bring spirituality, the importance of music in religions, but also outside. Its power to heal, its power to build bridges across borders, across communities. And we have 4 amazing speakers on this panel today who are going to share their experiences about the power of music with us. So over there we have Daniela de Armas. She's the conductor of the London Lucumi choir, which we will hear later on this evening as well. She represents the Afro-Cuban religion of Santeria, Espiritismo. And she has taught music and dance, for instance, at the Mary Ward Center, and she will tell us a little bit more about her experience of music to bring spirituality, to heal. Next to me is Marcelo de Souza from Shumei, UK, whom we already heard earlier today and who are very impressive. Shumei is a worldwide spiritual and self-sustainable organization that follows the teachings of the philosopher Mokichi Okada from Japan. And they foster dialogues between religious groups, as today, and also develop programs to ensure the health of their environment. And as we already saw today, that music is one essential part of that mission, and he's going to tell us a little more about that today as well. On my other hand is Adrian Zendeh, who's a musician from Berlin, guitarist and piano player. Actually, he's come all the way from Berlin today to be here, so please. He represents the Baha'i community in Germany, and actually I've come along to their sessions, and his music really sustains and supports the services there, so he will tell us a little bit more about how music, the power of music that he sees in his life and faith community. And finally we have Coleman from the Church of St. Anselm and St. Caecilia. He also leads the Schola Anselmi choir, which we'll also hear a little later, which is a Gregorian choir, and he's going to tell us about the power of music in Christianity and Catholicism. So later on, you'll all have the possibility to ask questions if you have any, so make mental notes of your questions for later. I would firstly like to invite all the speakers to give a little introduction about their experiences with the power of music. And Daniela, if you would like to go first.
Okay, so thank you very much for having me here today. I really wanted to talk a little bit about myself and my own personal journey because I think it will resonate more, and the background to me forming the London Lucumi choir. So I'm a 3rd generation musician. My father was a musician and my grandfather also. But today I'm not the person I was. Throughout my life I suffered from depression, bipolar mainly, and throughout my life I found it very difficult. I struggled very much as a musician with bipolar. It led me to self-medicate, and I became an addict. I used to drink, I used to take drugs, and I found it very difficult as a musician trying to keep a balance because, as you know, when you're performing, you do reach an incredible high, and then afterwards, when you're a person that suffers from depression, you're more susceptible to very destructive lows. And some people call it the pendulum effect, and I didn't have the tools in those days to know how to keep a balance. There wasn't a lot of sympathy out there either. So they got to a stage where I stopped performing, and I had a breakdown, which was followed by a clinical depression, which lasted for around 2 years. The prescription drugs that were prescribed to me did not help me in my process of recovery. My recovery was enabled by three things which happened. Much of it was conscious, but some of it was down to, well, just experimental, really. And one of the things was singing. I did have a lot of inner strength and determination to beat the depression because I was a mother and I did not want to die, basically. So I took my life into my own hands and decided to take control. Secondly, I decided to reconnect to this religious path that I had been following, not to a huge degree, but I started to follow the path of Santeria in 1986 when I was living in Cuba. And in order to bring myself back into balance and to connect with God, I knew that I had to become clean. So I gave up the prescription drugs, I gave up the drink, I gave up everything basically, and it wasn't an easy process. It wasn't overnight. But what helped me through, really, as well as becoming more connected to my faith, was actually singing and music. After I started singing again, it became a really big driving force in my recovery. I think singing is an incredible thing because singing is your own voice. That's why people find singing sometimes very intimidating because it lays you open and it opens you. Your singing voice is your voice, it's you. And I formed the choir basically after I became initiated as a priestess in my religion. It's been quite a long journey, but I would say that my faith combined with singing and using singing to heal myself, but to also to bring joy and voice to those around me. I think this is what keeps me going and keeps me in balance. Basically, the Lucumi choir has the benefits of being devotional and spiritual, not just singing for singing's sake, because they're songs of praise, and for me, they connect me to my ancestors and they connect me to God. The songs in the ceremonial context are designed to bring down the Orisha. The Orisha are deities that mediate between God and humankind. And the religion of Santeria, or Lucumi as it's known, is an African religion where parables and prayers are sung rather than spoken. And songs are used to communicate with God and to communicate with our ancestors and also to illustrate holy texts. But in the choir, it's a non-ceremonial context, and we have all sorts of people from all sorts of different backgrounds in the choir. There's only a few that actually follow the path of Santeria. Most people have some sort of spiritual belief. I think even there's people that don't have any, but they find it uplifting. I think in a non-ceremonial context, the songs that we sing have great power, and I think a 2-hour session of singing to the Orisha acts as a kind of meditation, opening up the singer and the choir to a natural and healthy state of consciousness. Singing is well known anyway for its proven health benefits. It's not only the feel-good effect, but because it involves controlled breathing, it's documented that it has indeed been beneficial for people with depression, Parkinson's disease, and lung cancer, amongst other things. In addition to leading and teaching the London Lucumi choir, I also began to teach people who believed they could not sing and were frightened of singing. The majority of these people were told they could not sing and had horrible voices. They were told at school to mime in choir or to stand at the back. To me, that really constitutes as a kind of abuse. To tell people to shut up or not sing because their voice is horrible is a real sort of criticism of that person. And I know that with the people that I've taught, it's stayed with them forever to the extent that they just feel so self-conscious opening their mouths. And in the sessions I used to lead with people who felt that they could not sing, it was very successful, and I feel that it helps build up every individual's confidence, and to also realize that you can sing. Everybody's got a voice, and I think singing is something we should encourage as a community activity, not only simply as a way of winning competitions, which is very in vogue these days, or becoming famous in the public eye. The acts of singing, rather than just performing, is a divine act. We all have our own unique voices that was given to us by the Creator, and we all should not be afraid to use them to heal ourselves. And I think, once a community is healed, or once individuals are healed, it's so much more easy to bring about change. So that's my journey, and thank you for listening. I hope I wasn't too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. I'm just clearing your name sign so people know who you are. Thank you for that. That was a very intimate insight. Thank you for that.
Pleasure.
Marcelo, would you please tell us about your experience with music and its importance for Shumei?
Absolutely. It's also great to be here. Beautiful story.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I come from, originally I'm from Brazil, and I'm descendant of healers, traditional natural healers. And I've been, in the past 10 years actually, I've been practicing healing and through Shumei. And since I have been initiated, I've been actually able to pass on that healing effect to others. And one of our daily practices is actually the chanting. Some of you have come earlier and have experienced the chanting as well as the taiko drumming, and I'm one of the students, so perhaps I will be able to perform one day here. Music, it is a big subject when it comes to link it to healing. Music, not only is lyrics or the performance, but also the sound of it, as we all know, can promote healing. And that's how in Shumei we use healing, we use chant as a way of purifying our souls. I myself have come to experience in so many occasions that by chanting that particular chant, it actually promoted some change, some shifts, not only within my life, but also in the life of other people that have been around me. So we all connected, that's what we believe. Therefore, by chanting that particular chant, and some other chants as well, we actually promoting that healing effect to others. So we had a brief explanation of what Shumei is, and we work together to promote world peace. And one of the ways we do, we believe, is that by using the taiko drumming to send out that vibrational energy through the sound that can actually promote to the big audience and also beyond the state of mind and the state of being that they need to promote world peace. So we cannot do it ourselves. We need some tools, we need some practices, and the way we do is by using the chants and also using the taiko drumming. So beauty is one of the main things we practice, and in beauty we find music and we find art. So music and art together, we can actually promote that the world, we can promote that effect that the world one day will become more purified, more clear, and therefore more peaceful. Chanting we do on a daily basis, we practice it on a normally twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And the sound that those chants promote, the sounds that we, when we chant, those sounds promote what we ourselves desire, which is to be clean, to be purified. So that combined with taiko drumming, that makes to us a perfect combination and set out to make us more able to achieve what our founder has actually taught us, that it is world peace. So that's my journey in short. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. I'll give the word to Adrian.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Adrian. I'm currently living in Berlin and preparing for my jazz piano study. And music is basically one big part in my life. and I couldn't imagine a life without music anymore. I was 16 when I decided to become a professional musician, and with the time I more and more feel that this was the right decision, and I always feel so fulfilled and happy when I'm playing, even when I'm sick and I'm going to the piano and play some piece, that brings joy to my heart. One thing I learned about the power of music I want to share with you is a story. For 6 months I worked at a kindergarten, and in the end, like 2 weeks before I left, one of the little boys just died. And the boy was always one of the happiest. He came in the morning happy and brought an instrument like a guitar with him, and I always asked him, "What are you today?" And he would say like, "Oh, I'm an organist or a pianist or even a conductor." And he would always take his guitar in the room and sing and play. Yeah, and this situation made me so angry and sad that I had to do something about it to handle it. And first thing I did was I offered the parents to play at the funeral, because I know that music was a big part in the life of the little boy. So I did that, and for myself I recorded a CD with piano improvisations, and this CD is called Memories of a Little Artist, because I think he was a little artist. Yeah. And after I did those things, I felt better, and I could close this chapter for me. And also I think I helped the parents a little bit to get out of this hole, to become more happy and see that other people also care about their situation. And all just through music. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian, for another very intimate account of the power of music. Last but not least, Ian, would you tell us a little bit about the power of music that you have experienced, as well in your religion as in your experience?
Thank you. Yes, I think I can honestly say that I came to faith through music, and that is because I was brought up by an atheist mother and an agnostic father, without any religious upbringing at all. But from their point of view, they made a fatal mistake, and they allowed me to join a choir. And so at the age of about 9 or 10, I became part of the choir of Jesus College in Cambridge. And I sang 3 or 4 times a week, not quite every day, but almost. And it's certainly those experiences of singing so regularly in what was actually a very beautiful surroundings of Jesus College Chapel that I think started my whole yearning for finding out more about faith and about God. And strangely enough, looking back on it now, I think what was most important was the experience of singing the Psalms, the Book of Psalms, traditionally attributed to David, who is like sort of one of the great figures in religious music. And that start led me along a very long and complicated route, which I won't go into just now, but it briefly led me into wanting to become a priest, and I'm not a priest, so it took me away from that as well. But I am a director of music, and I play and sing and conduct more or less what you would call, I think, the traditional Catholic repertoire. But of that repertoire, the music that appeals most directly to me and expresses my faith most directly is the music of Gregorian chant, which is a very ancient, nobody really knows how ancient actually in its roots, form of music. And in the chant, there are two particular things, I think, which are a very powerful insight. And I think they are around the area of praise and of repentance. And as this is not the first time I've come to one of these meetings, and each time I come, whenever I hear the other speakers, I think, yes, I recognize that. And so we've heard the words purification used, we've heard the expression praise used, and I think it's impossible for me to put my finger on what it is about music that brings us to these extraordinary divine things. But I think it has something to do with the fact that we all, as human beings, have an innate desire for the divine, whatever word or terminology you want to use for that, whether you name it God or not. And yet, as soon as we start to follow that desire, we become aware of how far away we are from the divine, not necessarily in heaven, but even our own ideals on earth as well. And I think one of the secrets of music is that it is able to bridge that gap. It is able to bridge that gap, and in Gregorian chant I see it in two ways. To bridge the gap by praise of the divine, by expressing praise in a Christian tradition for God and for the Christian through the mediation of Jesus Christ. But also it is able to express, and perhaps even more profoundly, the sense of loss and repentance and yearning to be closer to the divine. So again, as other speakers have said, I hope that later on this afternoon we'll be able to share a little bit of that when we actually hear and perform some of the chant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Before I ask any questions myself, does anybody from the audience would like to direct a question towards one or all of the speakers? All right. The first question I have, and you can all answer it. We've heard a real diversity of music already today, and do you think it matters how familiar we are with the music of other traditions? Do you think that the fact that music can be very different from what we're used to, it can actually alienate us from the traditions that these forms of music express? Or do you think that there is something universal that we can always associate with?
I can only say that when you're talking about spiritual music, I think, and when you're praising the divine, whatever tradition you're coming from, it will resonate with other people that are also practicing some sort of divine practice. I know a lot of people that have come to me after a performance and they've really said, oh, it's really touched me in some way. It doesn't matter that they are not knowledgeable about the musical tradition. I think that it's deeper than that. I don't know whether that helps or answers your question, but yeah.
Anybody else like to express their thoughts on this?
I was just going to say that I think my instinct is that we all have experience of our own traditions, and each of those traditions has built up over a long period of time ways of bringing us closer to the divine through music. So within that, I think one important thing about that is to understand that each tradition has its own ways, and therefore, while I'm sure it's a wonderful thing to appreciate and to open oneself to other traditions, I don't think we should necessarily be too judgmental about people who say, I like to sing and to worship in my way. And I think that's an important thing to realize in a context like this, where we hopefully can enjoy and share and be moved by each other's music, but also that we feel we always have the respect for, somebody might say to me, this is perhaps trivial, but they might say to me, now this chord, this brings me directly to God. And they play the chord, and I think, doesn't do it for me. But that's not the point, of course. And I think it's important to. That's obviously exaggerating. I don't know of any religious tradition that just has a chord that is the secret. But it's important to know that, I think.
Thank you. Yes, please.
You are asking me particularly, or?
What my question was initially, if music, because if we're not used to hearing music of some other tradition, of a different tradition, if it can actually push us away from that tradition, from trying to understand it. To give you an example, we heard the music of Shumei earlier, and that music actually, it doesn't have any harmony instruments. So we heard a very, not monotonic, but very simple chanting that doesn't have any musical accompaniment, and then we just heard drums that also don't have any particular melody. So I could imagine that for some people, that could actually make them not really understand what that music is about. It could make them feel like, it's interesting, but I don't want to listen to it for too long, and I'm not really interested to learn more. So what I'm saying is that this festival shows the diversity of music, and my question was just if the speakers feel that music, though it may have the power to bring people together, maybe it could also push them apart, because we don't understand the different musics. And that's what Ian actually said, that there may be, you can respect and appreciate other people's music, but it is justified that you want to stay in your tradition because that's how you've been brought up, and that's what resonates with you personally. That's how I understood what you said.
Sorry, just to follow on that just briefly, I think it might also be worth saying that we live in a culture which is sometimes oversaturated with music and with music that makes us into consumers rather than real participants. And so I don't know if this happened to anybody else, but you often find yourself in a context where perhaps you're performing or presenting something or just commenting on some music, and somebody says, oh no, I don't get it at all, it's not speaking to me, and they dismiss it because it's not of the sort of what you might call the general culture. And I think that's another point that it follows on really from what we were saying, that I think we need to be patient and to fine-tune ourselves perhaps to other sounds.
I agree. I was actually saying to Marcelo earlier how the music of his group, though it may not be something that they would play on the radio in BBC London, that because it's so different and because it doesn't have any harmonies in the sense that maybe some others are used to it, it forces us to pay more attention and to actually listen and to be quiet, to calm ourselves down. I think that may be actually difficult for some people to do. Some people might find it difficult to really open their minds to something new. Is there any questions? Yes, please.
Often I hear and see how different musical traditions, particularly spiritual ones, the sound itself has the effect of transporting whoever's there, whether they're knowledgeable in the art or they're just new to it. On some level it's intended to transport the people hearing and participating, I imagine, to a more spiritual plane or allow connection and access. But my question is, in the respective traditions you represent, the learning of the music and the instrument and in practicing and learning pieces perhaps, or learning performances, how is this spiritual connection expressed in the instrumentalists and musicians learning process?
That's a really good question. Certainly in the tradition of Santeria, the songs that we actually perform in the choir come from an oral tradition. Thereby, the songs that I've learned have mainly been in a spiritual context, in a ceremonial context. There's a public ceremony called, many people know it to be called tambor, which is, it's a ceremony which calls on the Orisha to come down and join the congregation. And basically, it's a series of songs which call to these Orishas, which are deities, as I said before, who mediate between God and us. The songs are sung and they're accompanied by drums. In Cuba, you would learn by going to these ceremonies, and that's how you would learn. You wouldn't go to, for example, classes or anything like that. It's now become more common in the States and also here to go to classes, learning songs for the Orisha or even drumming classes. I think it's got its problems because you're taking it away from the divine context. I've met a lot of people that have learnt bata drums, for example, which are the drums that accompany our songs, who have no belief at all. And I feel like when the motive is taken away, you're taking away something sacred also. I think what is different about the choir is that I am a practitioner and I am a priestess of my tradition. And every time I sing a song, I sing as a form of praise. However, there are workshops that are led by people that have learnt these songs, and I think it's coming from a slightly different place. That's my answer to your question.
Yeah, first of all, there's like no Baha'i music or no tradition of Baha'i music. So a little quote from the Baha'i religion says, "We have made music a ladder by which souls may ascend to the realm on high. Change it not into wings for self and passion." So music is basically a ladder for the soul, and for me, when I play, I'm not playing for myself, I always play for the audience, so that they have the opportunity that the music that I play is a ladder for their souls to uplift their souls. And
Baha'i tradition.
I lost my thought. Sorry.
Practicing.
What?
When you're practicing.
When I'm practicing. Yeah, that's hard to keep in mind sometimes. That's true, because there's so many things I have to learn and practice. But afterwards, when I look back, I always try to remind myself that music is something special, and we're encouraged to study music. But it's not like there's no law to learn music, or there's no quote that says, "This is the music that's right." We don't have to, it says, change it not into wings for self and passion, so we have to figure out what really uplifts our soul.
Okay, thank you. We had a question from over there. Yes.
What is the kind of thing, in the time of the Second World War, apparently Hitler used all the jazz musicians and converted them to play his traditional marching war music, and some of the jazz musicians who were swing musicians were actually put, like the Jews and the disabled, into the concentration camp. How do they feel that the movement of music today affects us? Is
I think partly it goes back to what I was saying about a sort of what you might call a dominant musical culture and being a consumer. I don't know quite if this applies to the situation in the Second World War. I'm not very knowledgeable about that, but I think there's no doubt that music can be used to subdue and to quell and to force, perhaps. I don't know quite force is the right word. But it seems to me that to the extent I know about the music of other spiritual traditions, it seems that one of the significant things is that the first rule, as it were, of spiritual music is that you are taking a step outside or beyond or to some other place, basically, from the sounds of the everyday. So I think that obviously it's not going to be a cast iron guarantee that you can't ever abuse music, but I think it seems to me that an authentically spiritual musical tradition always has that side to it where it can't really be used to dominate. I think it's a music which, provided it's performed correctly, is always there to bring us to a realization of ourselves and of the divine. That's what it seems to me. But that may be nice in theory. Whether it always works in practice, I'm not sure.
Would you like to ask your question as well?
Following on what you spoke about, I've listened to all of you, and the common thread is on spirituality. Yeah? Now, what I'd like to know is, how can music be used in a world of diversity and violence? How can we use music to actually break the barriers and promote what you said on peace and love, etc.? How can that be used? What can we actually do to
We can organize a SOAS Interfaith Music Festival.
What I'm saying is it's very good, but each of the talk that you have seems to be rooted in a particular tradition, in a particular cultural perspective. So what I'm saying is that, how can we use to promote it?
Yes. There, as you can see in your programs, there was meant to be another speaker called Ed Emery, and he actually represents a project that is happening at SOAS University, where music is being used to build cross-cultural relationships. It's the SOAS Salid Band, which is a particular type of music, but they have a project called Salid Beyond Borders, and they actually travel and engage people into their music, and they try to share, and the group actually consists of people that have all various faith backgrounds. So it's a shame that he's not here to talk about this, but I think there are many projects like this where music, although it may have a very sweet tradition that is very dear to some people, and it's not really commercial, but that it has the power to draw others in. Do you want to say something about that?
I speak on behalf of the Caecilia band. I'm not regular member, but I know what they do. Last week they were in Calais. I don't mind to try to get into Britain, so I find they are embarrassed themselves and treated very badly. Got peace there. And they were in Paris as well. They've gone to Istanbul last year. They've done quite a few travels. And what's good about Caecilia music? Caecilia is a folk tradition from these islands that really any musician can turn up. And if you know roughly the form and roughly the rhythms that go on, you can just read the sheet music, or you may even need a song, you can join in very easily. So you don't really have like a minimum number of people in the band or a maximum number of people. You don't have a very firm instrumentation. So in practice that means that Ed can put out a call out, and maybe 10 musicians turn up, or maybe 50 musicians turn up. I know during the kind of the political wave of the student movement, they were performing in a lot of places around then, but also I think their spiritual angle is the spaces they inhabit and where they go and play, and the act of even playing folk music that's very easy to dance to and that people can join into easily creates bonding maybe some of the lyrics can tie into some Celtic traditions, and that, well, that's kind of a bit of a stretch. But for them it's very important. Again, it's sort of no borders, clearly beyond borders, because it's about, saying we're all one, we're all united, and getting the space to have it in the play.
Thank you for clarifying that. Do you want to say something about that as well?
You go first.
When we think about music, we normally think about melody. We normally think about mainstream or well-known sounds that are performed by great performers. But and what I'm going to add and share now, it's in relation to both of you and your questions as well. So take, for instance, the vibration that the sound produces. So we have already discussed that in our performances, there might not be much of a melody or mainstream kind of element that we are used to. And because this is not actually what we are practicing in a way. The sound that it is promoted, that can cause a difference wherever it is played. It has been played in so many different places, and it's beyond borders, also beyond faith. We have played in so many different spiritual organizations, established religions, and also there was an interesting event as well when we were playing at the UN at one occasion. We set out all this. It was also an interfaith event. So we had people from all over the world, from different faiths and religions, all there, happy to be together. And when we set out all our drums, people were a little bit suspicious of, what's going to happen now? And it's loud and all. And they rehearsed before, and we noticed that they were not, especially the organizers, they were not really sure of what was going to happen there and how that could affect, if it could have some effect on the participants, especially because they were from all different religions and spiritual movements. But what happened was similar to what happened today here, and I have received some interesting comments on that. Beyond the melody and beyond the mainstream concept of music, that actually brought whoever could become still and listen a different state of mind and different kind of feelings. When we practice any sort of melody or any sort of music or any sort of when we use music to empower people, when we use music to help communities, that has a brilliant effect. Combined these with the sound and vibration of the sound of the music, that it matters. Just a brief thing here, as we all know, there are 75 great basic songs in the universe, we all know that. And the human ear is equipped only to hear sounds that fall within a certain limited range. By saying that, when we play taiko, or when we perform the Armas Sonorito, we might not get to hear exactly all the sounds, all the melody, if there is a specific melody to it, but the vibration, that carries on, and that will be within us, and that whatever we perform, it makes a difference, and we know that because of the feedback that we have received, and that's beyond faith and borders.
I'd like to quickly just try and respond to your question as well. The type of singing that we do comes from an African tradition as practiced or as expressed in Cuba. It doesn't require reading music. It doesn't require anything very much except to respond to what the main singer is singing. It's called call and response. It's a really easy form of singing. We've gone into a couple of schools and it's been really successful what we do. The performances that we've done has really reached the children, for example. They have found it very easy to join in. They have found it very easy to dance to. drumming and singing, you know, they're the two most ancient forms of expression, I think. However, I do think there's a problem in this society in that there is not enough investment in music, and in this environment it's extremely difficult to invest in our children. You do need money to keep projects going, and there is not enough funding for musical projects to go into the community and into schools, and you have to start young with children. And unfortunately, the idea of community singing, it's sort of taking off a bit with sort of the re-emergence of different choirs. However, to reach young people today, I think it's a real challenge. I would really like to see a lot more investment from the government in musical projects, all sorts of musical projects which call out to our children, because I think there is a very damaged society out there. And yeah, basically, to answer your question, it's all very well, but I think, you know, you do need funding for projects to go into the community and to heal the community also.
Well, I'm afraid the government is busy spending money on fighter jets, so we'll have to wait for that. I'll just take a last question. I'll have to round it up after that. Thank you.
My question is I'd like to ask the members of the panel. I guess where I'm coming from is music is clearly a spiritual home, and another sound that is often married to spirituality is silence. And I wondered if any members of the panel would like to talk about how, if they thought about that, or how they feel about the relationship of their music to silence.
Well, you certainly have to say something about that, Marcelo, no?
You first.
Well, this is another great and interesting question. The practice of we once are based on what I have been practicing and what I have learned. The practice of taiko, it's very austere. It's very difficult, and I think most people that has a relationship with music don't need to find an austere method of learning music. However, when we practice and learn taiko, we actually have a deep reverence for nature, and the silence is an element of nature. So there are moments whereby we have to keep still and silent. There are moments that we have to do not produce any sound at all, yet that's producing something. And that something is actually our inner balance and connection to nature. So that's how we actually acknowledge and use the element of silence to our own benefit and the benefit of the world, because it sends vibration from our own deep inner balance by being silent and stillness, yet we can actually revere nature, and we can actually still produce part of what that piece of music is, and silence is one of the elements of it.
Well, I think that's a good point to end the panel, because we started with music and we end with silence. On your program, it says that we will have Abdelkader Sadou next. Unfortunately, he sends his apologies, he's ill. But in his stead, we'll have Mike Stanton perform in a second. He's going to play some music from multi-faith background. And we'll also have Kat Drake, who also represents a Baha'i background. So bear with us.